All right, welcome. Today, we are jumping headfirst into the absolutely fascinating and way more complex than you'd think world of ECLECTUS parrots. We're going to break down exactly what it takes to breed them, and let me tell you, it's a process that's probably going to surprise you. So, let's kick things off with the most important question of all. If you're going to play matchmaker for ECLECTUS parrots, what is the single, number one, most important rule you have to follow? Everything else, and I mean everything, is built on this foundation.
And the answer is, you let the parrot decide. That's it. See, unlike so many other breeding programs where humans are calling the shots, with ECLECTUS parrots, the female holds all the cards. She picks her mate, period. Your job as a breeder is just to set the stage for her to make that choice.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? How do you create an environment where she can make her choice? Well, it's not about just sticking two birds in a cage and hoping for the best. It's a very carefully planned out process. You can really break it all down into four main steps. First, you've got to prepare what is basically a matchmaking arena. Then you introduce the leading lady to several potential male suitors. Step 3 is the hard part. You wait. You have to be patient and let her make her decision. And finally, once she's made her pick, you move the new couple into their own private space. And these details you see here, they're all about empowering the female and, just as importantly, keeping the peace. You need a massive flight, a huge enclosure, so everyone has their space. Multiple perches and feeding stations mean the males aren't fighting over resources. But the most critical detail? Only one nest box. Whichever female cleans that box, she's the one in charge.
So she's picked her guy, and now the happy couple gets to move into their own private home. This next step is all about creating a space that screams privacy and safety, a place where they feel totally secure enough to start a family.
The flight itself needs some specific features. High perches so they feel safe, a soft wood perch right by the nest for easy access, and things like willow branches to keep them busy. But look at that rule on the right. This one is non-negotiable. ECLECTUS parrots need their privacy. You have to have visual barriers between pairs, because if a male sees another pair mating, he will get completely distracted and just start screaming his head off, ruining the whole vibe. And the nest box itself is so much more than just a box. It's gotta be her safe haven. It needs to be really deep, like 2 to 3 feet, to feel like a natural tree hollow. It needs a very specific entry hole size, lots of soft bedding, and a ladder inside so she can get in and out easily. And I love this little detail. Sometimes a small shelf inside for the male, so he has a place to hang out without getting in her way. And you absolutely cannot skimp on safety, especially if your aviaries are outdoors. You've got predators like hawks, raccoons, even cats. A single layer of wire just won't cut it. That's why you need double wiring, with a gap between the layers. It creates that essential buffer zone to keep everyone inside safe. All right, the pair is settled, they're happy, and now we wait. This next stage is all about anticipation and providing the absolute best support as we go from egg laying all the way through incubation. This is where diet and super careful observation are everything.
And this slide just perfectly shows how complex their diet needs to be. It's not just a scoop of seeds, that's for sure. The morning meal is all about fresh, nutrient-dense foods, dark greens, veggies, a little fruit. Then the evening meal is the solid foundation, a high-quality seed mix, some pellets, and those essential healthy fats from nuts. This kind of variety is absolutely vital to get them into breeding condition.
As soon as the hen lays her clutch, which is usually 2 eggs, the clock starts ticking. 28 days. That's the magic number. For 4 solid weeks, that female is going to do almost nothing but keep those eggs warm, and she's relying entirely on her mate to bring her food. Now, you might think the best thing to do is just leave her completely alone, right? Well, actually, it's the total opposite. Quick, predictable, daily checks of the nest are so important. This routine builds trust, it makes your presence normal, not scary, and it lets you keep an eye on those eggs, which is going to be critical for what comes next. So after those 28 days of waiting, the most delicate, high-stakes part of the whole journey begins. The first few days after those chicks hatch, this is where a breeder's powers of observation are really put to the test. This right here is the single most important check a breeder will ever make. A brand new chick is unbelievably fragile. By midday on its very first day of life, you have to look and see if its crop, that little food pouch in its neck, is full. If that crop is empty, it means mom isn't feeding it, and you have to pull that chick for hand rearing right away. If you don't, it simply won't survive. Now, while you're focused on whether the mom is doing her job,
There's another wild card in that nest box, and that's Dad. His role with the brand new chicks, well, it's not always predictable. He can be a huge help, or he can be a real problem.
You really see a whole spectrum of behaviors with the fathers. Most of the time, the female just keeps him out of the nest entirely. In some really rare, sad cases, a young dad might actually harm the chicks. But then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have these amazing fathers who are allowed right in to help feed. You just never know what you're going to get, which is exactly why you have to be watching constantly. Okay, so assuming the chicks have made it through those first few crazy days, they now get to enter the final, and you could argue the most important stage of their young lives, being raised by their parents and learning everything they need to know to be a successful parrot. And this is a long, long apprenticeship. We're not talking about a few weeks here. The average time for an Eclectus chick to fledge, to leave the nest, is about 116 days. That's almost 4 months. And what's wild is that the parents will actually keep the chicks in the nest even when the little ones try to leave early. They know when they're truly ready for the world. And once the chicks are finally out and about in the flight, you see this really fascinating shift in the family dynamic. The father often steps up and becomes the main food provider. The breeder still needs to be watching like a hawk, though, because sometimes the mother can get a little aggressive toward her own female chicks at this point. And this, right here, this is why parent rearing is just so invaluable. It's a complete education. I mean, look at this curriculum. The chicks learn how to handle all kinds of different foods, they learn how to socialize, they learn natural parrot behaviors like chewing, and they get to watch the mating rituals that are going to be critical for them to breed successfully someday. That is an education no human can ever replicate. Which brings us right to our final thought here. This entire process we've just walked through, it's all about stepping back and just respecting the bird's natural instincts, from letting the female pick her own partner to letting the parents teach their own kids. So the real question is, does respecting their nature ultimately create not just happier, healthier birds, but a more successful and sustainable breeding program? All the evidence seems to scream yes.
Placing breeding pairs in areas exposed to natural sunlight is crucial for their health. Please note that Eclectus parrots do not have as many layers of feathers as other parrot species, for example, Amazons. Fully feathered adult Eclectus parrots do not tolerate continued exposure to cold weather below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A very special thank you to Laurella Desborough for making this video possible and for generously sharing her years of experience with Eclectus parrots. For more detailed information and resources, you can visit her websites at www.eclectusparrotcenter.com and www.eclectusarc.com. If you have any questions or comments, Laurella would be happy to hear from you directly at laurella.desborough@gmail.com. Your support and engagement help us all learn more about the wonderful world of Eclectus parrots. The links are also in the description of this video.